Michael Bilowski, reporting to you from Vermont for The Last Defense. Today, I want to talk about what's been in the news, the manifesto by Tucker Carlson, the former, well, now independent reporter, former Fox News reporter, potential presidential candidate. We'll find out. Officially, this manifesto is, I believe in his own words, for what's to come next. He had a meeting recently at his house where he does his podcast from. I listen to his podcast a lot. I listen to, as in somebody who's trying to get back into full-time journalism. I used to be for 10 years a full-time journalist in Vermont. I listen to podcasts any chance I can get because that's how you get back into the news, is by knowing what's going on. Tucker Carlson is he's one of the better ones. He's on the top for a reason. For those of you who aren't as familiar with the story, he was the #1 cable talk show news host in the world, I believe. And he was fired and or let go from Fox News, largely because he was challenging the establishment media on any number of issues, most notably the integrity of the 2020 election. And for those of you following our own podcast at The Last Defense, I did an episode maybe a week or two ago about the integrity or lack thereof of electronic and mail-in voting, especially here in Vermont. So I have a lot of strong feelings about that too, and I greatly appreciate his reporting, Tucker Carlson's reporting on this issue. But he's got his own podcast now on Spotify. I listen to it pretty much every episode. Him, Joe Rogan, the Alex Jones Show. There's a couple of them that I kind of rotate around, but he's part of my front top 3 rotation of media that I try to check out every day, every episode, to see what's going on in the world. I try to get as many perspectives as possible, but I always want Tucker's perspective. And with that, let's dive right into what's going on with him. Now, I want to tell a little bit of backstory here. You'll notice I'm looking at Russia Today. Russia Today, I had to go through, and I'll just click on it right here since we're screen sharing. Look at some of these headlines. Newsweek, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, white supremacist manifesto. Nothing biased about that. So according to Newsweek, this is a white supremacist manifesto. I clicked on 3 or 4 of these links. None of them had the actual manifesto in it. It's just bullet points and a couple of simple principled statements. It's not a long document by any means, but none of these publications in the mainstream USA News took the little bit of space in their articles to actually post what the manifesto said. It's only summaries in their own words, or as you can see in Newsweek's words, a white supremacist manifesto. All right, please, anyone, please feel free to share in the comments what is white supremacist about any of these points. But in the RT's article, they do list it. So why don't I just read from the top? What is in Tucker Carlson's Save America manifesto? The popular journalist envisions a MAGA movement purge of Donald Trump's neocon tendencies. Right there, that says a lot. And I make comment just for a moment. So MAGA is I consider MAGA its own entity. Obviously, Trump can be credited with starting MAGA. He obviously came up with the phrase and the iconic red hats, make America great again. It was a very simple message. I think he was very honest and loyal to that message during his first presidency and the beginning, maybe the first 4 to 6 months of second presidency. And then I could spend a whole episode going through a litany of not just small things, but cornerstones of his campaign, of his political platform, that he's basically done a complete U-turn on. The Iran war is the most obvious. That's the one that makes the most headlines in the news, because he ran as a non-interventionalist foreign policy for both of his entries into the White House in 2016 and his failed attempt in 2020. And then in 2024, it was non-interventionalist. Obviously, we are intervening very much so in Iran, and we're getting all the consequences, economic and otherwise, for that. He is also he has a new, I'm probably butchering the title, but a new woman who's going to be the Secretary of Health, leader of the National Health Institute, I believe it is. I don't have her name in front of me, but she's basically a pro big pharma, pro mRNA vaccine, pro everything that Trump basically said he wasn't going to do. So that's a big one for me. I've had people who've been hurt in my own family, hurt very severely and or killed by pharmaceutical products. And I don't appreciate him making a U-turn on that one. He also he frankly failed at getting all the Epstein files released. He infamously said, I think less than a year into this presidency, that anybody who cares about Epstein is no longer MAGA or doesn't care. It's like a Democrat conspiracy. Never mind that it seems to be mostly Democrats in the actual files. You would think it would work to Donald Trump's favor to release all that, but he's obviously trying to protect somebody. We can only speculate. So he failed on Epstein. He failed on keeping Big Pharma's nefarious interest at bay. He failed on keeping us out of foreign wars. He's, according to many of his critics, he's basically stopped on the border policy. The borders are essentially open again or not being enforced again. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I'm hearing in the alternative media, and I trust that's probably true. So a number of things he's definitely failed on. Let's see what RT says about this. And as you can see, they get right into these bullet points, this manifesto. Conservative journalist Tucker Carlson has unveiled his 10-point vision for a post-Trump MAGA movement amid growing speculation that he plans to help launch a third party to take on the U.S. Democrat duopoly. In a 90-minute live stream on Wednesday, I listened to that live stream. It's a good one. Carlson declared the American political system totally incapable of responding to reality. He did say that. And unable to deal with the dual threats of AI and nuclear war, referring to the merging of the Ukraine and Iran conflicts into a quote-unquote world war. Quote, I think it's worth thinking about what comes next, Carlson said. Something will replace this system, and it will probably be a third party or multiple parties. Describing the Democrat-Republican platforms as identical, and they are. I basically, all those things that I'm separating from the article now, all those things that I just listed that Donald Trump basically took a U-turn on, basically makes him, in my mind, frankly, a 2020 Democrat. Everything that he ran against the big pharma mandates. He ran against foreign intervention. He ran for releasing the Epstein files. He ran against having open borders. He's basically running the 2020 or, frankly, current Democrat platform. There's very few differences, I believe, between today's Donald Trump and the establishment Democrat Party that he so passionately ran against most of his life. I'd be very pressed to find tangible differences between the two platforms now. So yes, they're essentially the same party. Getting back to this article, Carlson suggested that any third party should embrace the following 10 things that America should be. Okay, so let's just go through them. I don't have a lot of time, but I think that these points are worth just going over, and I'll make quick comments on them. Fair. American politicians and elites should be held to the same objective standards as ordinary citizens, while members of the Epstein class should no longer get a pass, and DEI programs should be eliminated. Again, this is all stuff Trump ran on. He said this was not going to be a thing anymore, people being treated differently based on their status. The very essence of Western and even going back to the days of the Romans, the essence of a modern Western society is that we are all equal. I believe it's the Declaration of Independence. It says we are all equal, created by God under the eyes of God. Whether you believe in God or not, it's a moot point. The essence is the same. We are all equal footing, whether you're a poor man on the street or the top politician in the office. Sovereign. This is the next point. Sovereign. The U.S. should no longer be beholden to any lobby groups or foreign nations, particularly Israel, which Carlson said forced the U.S. into war with Iran through bribery or threat or both. So this is obviously paraphrased by RT. These are not, but I think they did a fair job of it. So yes, Israel, for those who are not paying attention, in the National Defense Authorization Act, which is basically our military budget, I think it's $1.5 trillion. And the small print of that bill essentially has been a merger, an essential merger of the US and Israeli military as far as a functioning level goes. So sharing information, sharing technology, sharing intelligence. We probably do a lot of that already, but at least formally, we're still different nations with different militaries. This new National Defense Authorization Act, were it to pass, would eliminate those, at least on paper, differences. We would officially be like one nation, one military. I don't think that sounds sovereign at all, unless we're making them a 51st state. Productive. The US economy should not be built on finance and debt. It needs to make things and reinvest in agriculture and heavy industry. Again, another thing Trump ran on. He wanted to get building and creating things back from overseas over to America. He was doing that for a while. Some of that has happened, but again, we have a lot of the stock market, I think, is driven by actions on Wall Street rather than tangible production of goods and services. That in the real economy, any given day, when you strip down all the numbers and all the data, it's how much do you have to work in order to earn your keep, meaning your food, shelter, your fuel, your car payments, etc., the things that you need in order to live a normal life. It used to be one person in a four-member or in a household could earn all that. Even though our technology and efficiencies have gotten more efficient over the last half century or so, our quality of life has gone down. We now need, in my household, my wife and I both work full-time. I work plus full-time. She might be getting another job. So, and we're barely getting by with our bills and whatnot. So that's the problem. We're not, that's the real economy. We need a productive economy, not one that's built on financial speculation on Wall Street. Beautiful. The US is, always has, and should continue to be beautiful. Concrete, brutalist architecture should be rejected, as should the uglification of cities through graffiti, drug use, littering. I've noticed this. I used to live in, I'm just beeping my dog, make sure he's still around. I'm dual, oh, there he is. He's not on the camera, but he's here. Anyway, thank you, Jackie. We should live in a beautiful society. Buildings should be pretty. They should not just be concrete blocks. I've lived in these buildings before, both overseas and in the US. The society we live in, the buildings we build, the structures we build, they should make us feel good. When we go outside and look at our cities, we should feel good. If you look at the older buildings in New York City and America's cities, they're beautiful. They're made of granite. They have statues carved into them. There's Roman architecture built into them. There's all kinds of designs and intricacies. The most modern buildings, the like glass boxes and like the concrete boxes, they're not, I mean, I guess it's subjective, but let's just be honest. They don't make you feel good. They should make you feel good. That's something worth investing in. Healthy. I'm just going through the principles, obviously. Physical and spiritual health should be prioritized. There shouldn't be any position in food. Shouldn't be any poison in food. My glasses are getting a little foggy here. It's hot out here. I'm sweating. Cannabis, alcohol, pharmaceutical drugs like Adderall, SSRIs make the US a less human country and should be discouraged. I'm not for outlawing these things. I think that throwing people in jail for marijuana is silly. I've definitely used a lot myself, as well as alcohol. But I can agree that as I get older, being present, saving those things, keeping those things regulated to what they should be, what they are, is luxuries, the things you do maybe at the end of the day. I can understand that, but we're becoming a society where you see people just getting high all day long, and that's not really high anymore. That's just a monkey chasing its tail. Let's be honest. So I agree with a lot. I agree with a lot of that, and I definitely agree that when you're healthy, you feel better, you're happier. You can. There's so many. I mean, health, I think, is a cornerstone to happiness. I can agree with that statement. Okay, honest. If it's a crime to lie to the government, then it has to be a crime for the federal government to lie to you. That's a quote from Carlson's view. This is RT. Officials should face punishment for lying to citizens and classifying documents in 9/11 and the JFK assassination. Should be released. I can totally agree with that. I am one of the few Americans right now who has published an article in New York City within 5 years after 9/11 that was questioning some of the aspects of the official story of 9/11. And I'm very proud of that. But I still think that was, so 9/11 was 26 years ago, or 25 years ago. So a quarter century later, I think we should be able to know more about why and how did those buildings really fall, who was bin Laden, what was with all the military drills going on that day, some of them nearly identical, not nearly identical, exactly identical to the events that were happening that day. I could go on, we could do multiple shows on 9/11, and we probably will. Another principle from Carlson. Optimistic. American elites should strive to hand a better future to their children, and having children should be encouraged. A society that places value on children discourages short-term gain and speculation and encourages sensible policy. I can relate to that just in my own personal life. I have 3 kids, all of them boys. I'm still with my wife. I'm not saying it's wrong to separate or do things differently, but I definitely place a high value in maintaining a strong family. And everyone's got their personal choices as far as how they live their life and whether they have a family. But I will say having a family and having young children, and having them look up to me and want to see a role model in me makes me want to do a good job on this podcast, at my jobs, in journalism, in life, in everything, being healthy, all these things. If you have children, you probably understand. If you don't have children, you have parents, and you probably still understand. Yeah, children are the ultimate motivator in life to do things better. What else? Wise. Education should not be a credentialing system, quote unquote, and should teach children, quote unquote, how things work. Schools should emphasize that the things that don't change, like human nature, including innate gender and genetic differences between people. Okay, so again, there's obviously some comments on transgenderism in there. I can agree with the statement that schools should teach tangible truth as far as there are 2 sexes. Are you legally allowed to identify as a different sex according to the First Amendment? Yes, you are. Are you legally allowed to force your beliefs about those onto other people according to the First Amendment? No, you are not. I think those are principles both sides should be able to agree with, because nobody wants to be forced what to believe on either side of the political spectrum, but we also want to be able to say what we believe individually. Each of us individually should be able to say what we believe. So a little bit of a tangent there, but I guess what I'm trying to say is ultimately I agree that education should focus on tangible reality, not somebody's personal beliefs. I can agree with that. Dissent. Just 2 more here. Dissent is the next to last. The U.S. needs to move away from a system that allows Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to, quote unquote, jump around like a bloodthirsty monkey. I like that wording. Funding for allies who commit, quote unquote, genocide should be withdrawn. Restitution should be paid to Iran for the killing of civilians. So there's a lot going on in that comment. Again, each one of these could get its own show, some of what's going on here. So obviously these allies, they're talking about Israel and what's going on in Lebanon and Palestine. And I can agree that I don't think any American should or would want to fund a nation that is doing bad things. I would take that further and say, even if Israel was behaving well and they were doing virtuous things generally, I don't see how any nation from all the way around the world needs to be funding another nation. Even if under the best of circumstances where Israel's like doing wonderful things and trying to like help its neighbors around them, obviously none of which is going on right now. But even in the best case scenario, I don't think that would justify us giving money to another nation around the world. Let them handle their neighbors, their world. We are America over here. We are America. We are not in Israel. That is a very far distance away for a quote unquote 51st state, which it seems like Israel more and more is becoming every day. See, I'm already starting to go into a tangent. I don't think we should be giving nations any money unless they're in like a dire situation where they absolutely need help. Israel is the aggressor in its current conflicts. It is not the defender, and they don't need our money. That's my take on that. United, this is the last one. Quote, no country can continue without a sense of itself as a nation, end quote. Mass immigration should be paused while national identity is consolidated. Benefits for immigrants should be cut. English should be the sole federal language. Yeah, there's a lot in the last statement too. I'll try to be concise. So I don't know that we need to ban immigration. Frankly, my wife is an immigrant. She's also a legal immigrant. She had to get a green card to come here. I'm not in favor of illegal immigration, and I don't think anyone should. I don't think that benefits anybody. It doesn't benefit the people coming here illegally because it puts them in a precarious situation where they may end up being deported or punished for their crimes and or simply denied basic services that everyday Americans enjoy. And it also puts them in the crosshairs politically because when they do use services that they're not paying for, it creates a lot of tension and angst towards those immigrants. So I don't see how it helps the immigrants. It definitely doesn't help America because now we have undocumented people here. We don't know who's safe, who wants to be here for the right reasons. If you want to be here for the right reasons, do it legally. Just do it legally. Go through the process. Yes, it's a pain in the ass. I know it is because we did it. My family, I'm American, born American, but my initial family is not. So I know all about it, and you should do it legally for all different reasons. It says benefits for immigrants should be cut. I think if you're a legal immigrant and you've done your paperwork and whatnot, then you should get what you deserve as far as benefits. But if you're here legally and you want handouts, I can definitely see a problem with that. Should English be the sole federal language? It is the language that most of us speak in this country. So on a functional, tangible level, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm not saying we shouldn't hire interpreters to help immigrants who come here legally to say, okay, you want to come here for maybe the right reasons and you deserve to be here. Let us help you. We will interpret for you. I'm okay with that. My battery's dying on my computer. Maybe that's the universe telling me it's time to wrap up. But that was all of the 10 points. These are, I guess you would call them principles. I will end with this comment on the group. Hey, look at this photo here. This is let's pick this photo and try to enlarge it. So we're going to X. I'm gonna have to sneeze in a moment. Okay, it's loading. It's loading. It's loading. It's loading. Let's just look at it on here. You can kind of see the picture. Maybe I'll zoom in a little. Yep, there we go. All right, so there's a couple of folks in there. I don't know how well you can see. Obviously, you see Tucker's in the back. I think that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I might be butchering that name. I see Thomas Massey. I think Joe Kent, the top military advisor who resigned at the beginning of the Iran war. I don't know everyone in this photo. But I would say Joe Kent, Thomas Massey, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, I would call that a heavyweight or a all-star lineup as far as trying to start a new political party. Whether they actually do that or not, who knows? But they're clearly, I would consider that original MAGA, like the real MAGA before it went sideways. I don't know that I would call current Trump MAGA by any standard today. He may have started MAGA. He can take credit for starting MAGA, but he went off the rails from MAGA. And I don't think I think the people in this photo on my computer right now are much more MAGA, much more Make America Great Again than the current Donald Trump is. We could do a whole episode on how and why Trump went sideways. I think it could have to do with the assassination attempts against him. I think he might be losing his mind a little. He's an elderly man. It could be a combination of things. But in any case, clearly, he is not fulfilling the promises anymore that he ran on in the 2024 campaign. I would say the first 4 to 6 months, he was fulfilling a lot of his promises. But even early on, I think it was the Epstein files was the beginning of him going sideways. He did not get them all released right away. I don't think they've still been all released. And I've already listed the other stuff. So a lot of ranting, a lot of blah, blah, blah. But I thank you all for listening. Again, this is Mike Belowski with The Last Defense. Me and DC over in England will be doing another podcast, I believe, in 2 days, and that should post soon after. And this one that you're listening to will be available. So thank you for listening. Please support us. We are independent journalists. We're really trying hard. And thanks for, there it is. That's the blow up of the picture that I was talking about. All right, and with that, I'm going to stop this recording. Thank you again.